Discover the heartwarming moment when a single dad transformed the CEO's daughter's life in 30 seconds. In the heart of a struggling Midwestern town, Mike gripped the wrench, sweat trickling down his brow. He glanced over to his daughter, Lily, who was knee-deep in grease as she cheered on the group of kids learning basic mechanics. They were in their element, volunteering every Saturday at the local community center. But today was different. Today, their lives were about to intersect with a world they'd barely imagined. As he attached the final piece to the worn-out car, the door creaked open, and in stepped Sophie, the CEO's daughter, forced to fulfill her community service requirement. With a designer backpack slung over her shoulder, she looked out of place, eyes scanning the workshop like a deer caught in headlights. Mike's heart sank. She looked lost among the clamor of laughter and hard work. "Welcome to the best garage in town," Mike said, assisting the young ones in tightening bolts. His voice was warm, inviting a smile from Lily. But Sophie merely rolled her eyes, arms crossed, skepticism written all over her face. Lily nudged Mike and whispered, "Dad, can we help her?" The thrill in her voice echoed the hope that filled his heart. Mike nodded, bent on showing Sophie that the world's a better place when you give a little. Over the next hour, laughter echoed off the workshop walls as Mike shared humorous tales of clunker cars and tire fires, while Sophie slowly began to thaw. He spoke of perseverance, the kind his family instilled in him. As tensions eased, Sophie caught herself chuckling for the first time, her defenses cracking just a bit. "See? Hard work can be fun," Lily piped up, wiping her brow before smashing her fist into a greasy palm. They fast became a trio, Lily beaming with pride, Mike beaming with hope, and Sophie cautiously joining in, unsure but intrigued. It was like witnessing the birth of an unexpected friendship, the kind that could transcend social constructs. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Just as they tightened the last bolt on the car, an electric thrill coursed through the air. Lily turned to Sophie, eyes shining. "You should come by again," she urged, determination evident in her voice. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of hope ignited in Sophie's heart. But around the corner, Karen, Sophie's mother, had her ear to the ground, and that air of simplicity and hard work was about to collide with corporate ambition. As Mike prepped to launch a community fundraiser to save their center, whispers of judgment echoed through the town. They questioned how a simple mechanic could challenge a powerhouse CEO. The girls faced hesitant smiles one moment, harsh stares the next. Sophie wondered if her mother would see her as a traitor. Torn between her mother and her newfound friendship, Sophie stood at the precipice of a decision that could change everything. Would she embrace a connection built on grit and hope, or would she crumble under the weight of expectations? There, with the sun setting on the horizon, Mike's determination and Lily's friendship interwove with Sophie's confusion, setting the stage for a conflict that no one was prepared for. The road ahead was uncertain, but hope flickered brightly, reminding them all of what truly matters in life. Sophie's footsteps echoed against the polished floor as she walked away from the workshop, her designer shoes crunching on the gravel outside. The laughter inside clung to the air like a distant melody, and she found herself wanting to return, to absorb more of the warmth that Mike and Lily shared. It stirred something deep inside, a feeling she hadn't entertained in a long time. Back at home, she dropped her backpack in the foyer, the air thick with the scent of crisp, white linens and fine perfumes. Her mother's voice rang through the house, sharp and demanding. Karen always had a plan, she had always pushed Sophie to follow it, to fit the mold, but now that pressure felt heavier than before. "What did you do today?" Karen called from the living room, peering over her reading glasses. Sophie hesitated. "Just some community service," she replied, her voice lacking enthusiasm. "Just? You need to take this seriously, sophomore. These hours matter for your college applications. A flash of frustration crossed Sophie's mind, but before she could speak, her mother added, "What kind of people are you meeting? The right contacts are vital in this industry." Sophie longed to tell her about Mike's stories, about how he turned an old car into a community project where kids from different backgrounds came together to learn. But the words stuck in her throat. Would her mother understand the value of that? As night descended, Sophie lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The laughter echoed in her mind, a stark contrast to the emptiness in her own life. Torn between her mother's expectations and her desire for something genuine, her heart swayed like a pendulum. Meanwhile, Mike and Lily were back in the workshop, discussing how to organize the fundraiser. The room buzzed with excitement. They brainstormed ideas, including bake sales and car washes, and Mike couldn't help but feel proud. "This could change everything for the community center," he said, glancing over at Lily, who was scribbling a list of potential donors on a worn-out notepad. Lily's eyes sparkled. "What if we invite Sophie? She might have connections." Mike hesitated, the weight of the current dynamics between their worlds hanging like a thick fog. Could they really rely on Sophie, the CEO's daughter? But the flicker of hope that had ignited during her visit begged him to consider her. At the pink dawn of the next day, a thought took root in Sophie's mind. What if she reached out to Mike? What would it mean to stand up against her mother, her world? The pressure of expectations was a heavy coat, yet maybe, just maybe, she could shed it. She picked up her phone, hesitating before pressing dial. What would she say? Does she tell Mike about her struggles or simply express interest in joining their fundraiser? As her heart raced, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the hallway mirror, uncertainty overshadowed by a flicker of daring. With a deep breath, she pressed the call button. Across town, Mike's phone buzzed, startling him as he held a wrench midway to a rusted bumper. He exchanged a glance with Lily, who rushed over to him, eyes wide. "Who is it?" she asked, bouncing on her toes, unaware of the hesitation flooding through him. "I don't know yet," Mike replied, glancing at the screen. And as the familiar name lit up, a feeling churned in his stomach. Could this be the turning point? Would Sophie take the ultimate step toward embracing friendship, despite the shadows of their circumstances? The ring echoed across the room, and anticipation clawed at them both. What would Sophie decide? Would she join the fight to save their community center, or would she retreat back into her old life? The question lingered as each tick of the clock urged them toward a decision that would ripple through their lives, testing the boundaries of belonging, ambition, and courage. Sophie held her breath as the phone rang on the other end. It felt like an eternity, one filled with anxiety and hope. Finally, Mike answered, his voice a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Hey, Sophie, what's up?" "Hi, Mike," she breathed, a little more composed than before. "I was thinking about the fundraiser you're organizing." Mike's heart raced at the sound of her voice. There was something different in the air now, charged and full of possibilities. "Yeah, we're just getting started. We need all the help we can get." Sophie hesitated, knowing immediately that it wasn't merely help she wanted to offer. "I want to help. I'd like to be part of it." "Really?" His tone lifted, the doubts that had clouded his mind momentarily set aside. "That would be amazing, but, are you sure? What about your mom?" Her chest tightened at the mention of her mother. "That's exactly why I want to do this," she said, feeling a surge of determination. "I need something real, something that matters." "I understand," Mike said softly, a hint of admiration in his voice. The conversation flowed more easily afterward. Sophie suggested reaching out to local businesses for donations, while Mike shared their brainstorming ideas. Every minute spent on the call filled Sophie's heart with warmth, a stark contrast to the cold isolation she often felt at home. "You know," Mike started, trying to lighten the mood, "if we pulled off a bake sale, I was thinking of pitching my grandma's famous chocolate chip cookies. They have this magical ability to make everything feel better." Sophie chuckled, a sound that felt foreign yet welcome. "I'd love to taste those cookies." As they shared laughs and brainstormed ideas, the connection between them deepened. Sophie could almost taste the freedom of stepping into something new, leaving the weighted expectations behind, if only for a while. After they wrapped up the call, Sophie felt a mixture of exhilaration and anxiety. What was she getting into? Would it be enough? Across town, Mike hung up feeling lighter than air. He glanced over at Lily, who had been listening quietly. "She's in," he said, a smile creeping across his face. "Wow, that's awesome." She grinned, clapping her hands together. This could change everything. Yet, there was a shiver of uncertainty within Mike. Was Sophie ready to step into their world, where everything wasn't so polished and perfect? He bit his lip, wondering if she truly grasped the challenges that lay ahead. Later that evening, Sophie found herself pacing her room, her heart still racing from the day's events. She felt free, lighter, but fear gnawed at her. This path could alienate her from her mother even more, but an undeniable pull toward Mike and their cause tugged at her. "What will Mom think?" she murmured to herself, running her fingers through her hair. As her phone buzzed with a new message. It was Mike, simply saying he was excited to see her tomorrow at the workshop for their first planning meeting. Sophie's heart fluttered. A new beginning rested just before her, a chance to break free. But would she have the courage to push through the shadows of her past? With a final glance at her reflection, she whispered, "Let's do this." As she turned out the light, beneath her uncertainty lay a flicker of hopeful ambition, a kind of spark that whispered she might finally be coming alive. But as the night seeped into dawn, one thought loomed: could she mend the rift with her mother, or would she risk it all for a new beginning? Sophie woke up the next morning feeling an electric buzz in the air. She dressed quickly, heart thumping with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Today was the day she stepped into the unknown, moving towards something new and different. As she walked to the workshop, her mind replayed Mike's words. He was counting on her, and strangely, that thought made her feel powerful. Yet, the thought of her mother's reaction loomed in her mind like a storm cloud. She pushed it aside, focusing on the concrete path ahead, each step drawing her nearer to the community center where they would meet. When she arrived, the place was already buzzing with energy. Tables were set up with bright poster boards, stacks of markers and other craft supplies waiting to be transformed into plans that could help their cause. Mike spotted her immediately and waved, his enthusiasm infectious. She felt a rush of warmth when he smiled at her. "Hey, you made it." Mike came over, looking genuinely pleased. "I was afraid you'd change your mind." "Not a chance," Sophie replied, a smirk on her face. "Let's do this." As they dove into the planning, Sophie found herself surprisingly adept at brainstorming. She offered ideas, adding her own flair to their brainstorming sessions. The atmosphere was lively, everyone's voices mixed like a vibrant melody that tugged at her heartstrings. Laughter echoed as they pieced together the fundraiser plans. It felt good, it felt important, yet, deep down in the corners of her mind, that nagging thought of her mother wouldn't let go. A part of her longed for approval, but another part craved independence. What if her mom disapproved? Would it really be so bad to pursue something for herself? Hours flew by, enveloped in stories and roasted coffee. At one point, it was time for lunch. Sophie and Mike found a quiet corner outside where they could eat with a few other members. She sat close to Mike, his energy making it all feel so easy. They swapped stories, laughter bubbling between them like soda fizzing in a glass. "I can't believe I took so long to get involved in something like this," Sophie confessed. "It feels like I've been waiting for something like this to happen." Mike nodded in understanding, his gaze steady on her. "You know, it's never too late to find your place. Everyone's got their battles, but it's those very battles that make us who we are." His words struck a chord within her. Could it be possible that working on this project would bring her closer to herself? Eventually, she might just learn to navigate the complicated relationship she had with her mother. As they exchanged ideas and plans, Sophie felt a glimmer of hope blossom within her. She could almost see a path forming, one that wove between the love for her mother and the desire to carve her own identity. When it was time to leave, as the sun dipped low and the sky painted hues of orange and purple, Mike turned to her, eyes lit. "We did great today. Can't wait for the next meeting. We'll make a real difference." "Yeah," Sophie said, smiling back, "I'm in this." But just as she turned to leave, her phone buzzed emphatically. A message from her mother lit up the screen, the words reading cold and distant. "We need to talk. Now." Tension coiled in her stomach. What would her mother say? Would this newfound purpose mean losing that connection she desperately wished to strengthen? With her heart pounding, Sophie bit her lip, turning to look at Mike, the warmth of the day fading as shadows stretched. She knew now that she was on the brink of a pivotal moment in her life, and her next steps could change everything. With a deep breath, she tapped her fingers on the screen, feeling the weight of both fear and determination surge within her. She was ready to confront whatever lay ahead, even if it meant facing her mother's wrath. But just how would she balance this new journey with her past? Sophie stood outside the community center, her phone still hovering in front of her like a ticking time bomb. The message from her mother echoed in her mind, drowning out the laughter and chatter from inside. "We need to talk. Now." It felt heavy, a weight she wasn't sure she was ready to carry. Taking a deep breath, she finally decided to reply. "Okay. Where?" She hit send and instantly felt a mix of relief and dread. Mike glanced at her, concern flickering across his face. "Everything all right?" She hesitated, searching for the right words, but they eluded her. "Just my mom. She wants to talk. Do you want me to come with you?" He offered, his voice earnest. Sophie shook her head, grateful for his support but knowing this was her battle to fight alone. "No. I'll be okay. I just need to figure things out." She could feel his unwavering faith in her, and it propelled her forward as she waved goodbye and began walking toward her car. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows on the ground. Each step felt heavier, tinged with uncertainty. Once seated in her car, Sophie closed her eyes, trying to summon the courage to face her mother. Thoughts raced through her mind. What if her mother criticized her involvement in the community project? What if she didn't see how important this was to Sophie? The drive home felt interminable. The streets blurred as she replayed every hopeful moment she had experienced that day, from the brainstorming sessions to the laughter over lunch. That energy had filled her up. She wanted to hang on to it, but what if her mom's disapproval snuffed it out? When she finally arrived, the front porch looked just like it always did, a cozy, inviting space. But today, it felt more like a threshold to another world, one filled with anxiety. Sophie took a deep breath, then walked to the front door. Her mother stood waiting inside, arms crossed, dictating the tension in the room. "Sophie," she said, her tone heavy, "you're getting involved in this project without even talking to me about it. Is this about the fundraiser?" A knot twisted in Sophie's stomach. "Mom," her mother cut her off. "You could have told me. Instead, you just shut me out." "It's not like that," Sophie pleaded, the heat rising in her cheeks. "I wanted to do something meaningful. I don't know why I should feel guilty about wanting that." Her mother stepped closer but still kept her distance. "Meaningful? You need to focus on your future, on what I've planned for you. This project isn't going to get you anywhere." Sophie felt her pulse quicken at the familiar arguments. "But what if I want something different? I'm not sure that's my future, Mom. I want to find my own path." Silence lingered for a moment, her mother's expression a mix of confusion and disappointment. Sophie took another step forward, her heart racing. "I love you, Mom. I just need you to trust me." For the first time, Sophie saw her mother's facade begin to crack. "Sophie, change is hard. I'm scared of what this means for us, for you." Tears brimmed in Sophie's eyes, a mix of frustration and longing. I'm scared too. But isn't that part of growing up? Learning who I really am. Her mother looked away, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Maybe, but what if you lose your way? Sophie felt a flicker of hope. I don't want to lose my way. I want you to be part of this. In that moment, Sophie felt a shift between them. Perhaps her mother needed to understand her journey too. Can we try to figure this out together? Sophie asked softly. But just as her mother opened her mouth to respond, the room was interrupted by the sudden sound of ringing phones. Sophie's heart sank instantly as she glanced at her phone again. It was Mike, but it was more than that, a group text from the committee. A new challenge had arisen, something they needed to tackle right away. Sophie shifted her gaze back to her mother, the connection still teetering on the edge. Would this moment be cut short? With a deep breath, Sophie looked down at her phone. I need to answer this, she said slowly, sensing the urgency of her involvement rising. But she also felt a deeper urgency, a desire to keep the conversation going. Please, can we talk more after this? Her mom nodded curtly, but Sophie could see she was still processing the whirlwind of emotions. Would they find a common ground? And how would the project challenge her further? With the phone to her ear, she felt her heart beat faster. The balance between her life at home and her new journey was fraught with tension. But one thing was for sure, she wasn't ready to give up on either. As she stepped back into the living room, she glanced at her mother, realizing this was just the beginning of their journey together. But could they really navigate this transformation as a team? With the stakes higher than ever, Sophie knew she was diving headfirst into changes that could affect them both, but she felt that she was finally ready. The real question remained, would her mother join her? Sophie's fingers trembled as she answered the call, her heart racing with anticipation and anxiety. The group text from the committee was quickly coming into view. Everyone, we need immediate volunteers for the event set up tomorrow. The message read. We're facing a huge snag, and any extra hands would really help. Mike's voice cut through the chaos in her mind. Sophie. Are you there? Yeah, I'm here, she replied, trying to keep her focus. She could feel her mother's piercing gaze still on her, both curious and concerned. Sophie swallowed hard. I just need to help with something important. Important how? Mike asked, his voice gentle but firm. He knew her well enough to recognize when her heart was pulled in multiple directions. Sophie hesitated. The tug of the community project contrasted sharply with the weight of her mother's disapproval. It's about the fundraiser. There's a problem and they really need more help. Okay, he said, but don't forget what we talked about. You need to also talk to your mom. She nodded, even though he couldn't see her. I know, I will. I promise. But the urgency in her chest felt all-consuming. She glanced at her mother, who was shifting her weight from foot to foot, an uncertain expression spreading across her face. Let me call you back, Sophie said quickly before ending the call. Mom, her mother interrupted. Sophie, I understand that this project means a lot to you, but you need to explain how it fits into everything else. School, college, plans. You can't just dive in without knowing where you're headed. Maybe I don't know where I'm headed. Sophie snapped, surprising herself. Maybe that's the point I want to find out. This project lets me explore what's possible. Her mother's eyes widened, the moment heavy with tension. Does it really do that, or are you just trying to distract yourself? You can't run away from responsibility. Sophie inhaled sharply. Running away? I'm not trying to escape anything. I'm trying to do something good for myself and for others. Isn't that worth something? Silence stretched between them, thick and taut. Sophie watched her mother's expression slide from frustration to contemplation and back again. I just want to protect you, her mother finally said, her voice quieter. You have so much potential. I don't want you to waste it on something fleeting. I appreciate that, Mom, but you're not seeing what's right in front of you, Sophie said, her urgency building. It's more than just a project. It's people, it's helping, and it's me learning to be me. What does that even mean? Her mother asked, crossing her arms more defensively. It means I want to make choices for myself. Not just walk the path you've laid out for me. Sophie's voice trembled, but she stood firm. I want us to have this conversation, even if it's hard. Her mother stayed quiet, and the sound of the ticking clock filled the space, each tick amplifying the weight of the hours they spent in silence. Sophie's phone buzzed again, another notification demanding her attention. Just a sec, she said, her heart still in her throat. She glanced at the screen. We really need bodies at the setup. Can you come? At that moment, the gravity of the decision pressed on her. The urgency from the committee and the vulnerability in her mother's eyes collided violently. She had to choose. Sophie cleared her throat. I want to help with the setup. I feel it's urgent. But I need to know you'll support me in this, even just a bit. Her mother's brows furrowed. Are you sure this is the direction you want to take? It's a big commitment, and I'm not sure if it aligns with your goals. Sophie took a deep breath, fighting the swell of emotions threatening to spill over. I want you to believe in me. That's all I need. As she picked up her keys, she caught her mother's gaze, searching for something connection, relenting, a sign that their paths could cross instead of standing so far apart. Would this moment break through the distance? Sophie stepped towards the door, her heartbeat pounding louder. Will you please think about it while I'm gone? I want to talk more when I get back. I need you in this with me. The vulnerability hung in the air, fragile as glass. Her mother nodded slowly, a flicker of realization pulling at her features. As Sophie walked out the door into the crisp evening air, she felt the weight lift just a little. The road ahead was uncertain and daunting, but maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something different, a possibility that could engulf them both. The question lingered in her mind, echoing with hope: would they truly find their way together, or would the past continue to silence the future? The streets were quieter now, the setting sun casting long shadows across the pavement. Sophie walked briskly, her thoughts racing ahead of her. She could feel a mix of adrenaline and determination flowing through her veins. The committee's message echoed in her mind, and every step felt like a push toward something bigger than herself. As she neared the community center, the first signs of the setup were visible. Colorful banners lay in chaotic piles, and tables waited patiently to be arranged. Sophie took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. She would be a part of this, she would help, and that felt right. Hey! Sophie! Lynn, one of her fellow volunteers, waved from across the parking lot. With a smile, she hurried over, her brown hair bouncing. Glad you made it. We could really use your creativity over here. Thanks, Lynn. What do you need? Sophie felt her excitement bubbling again as they reached the staging area. We're trying to come up with ideas for how to display the silent auction items. They're kind of all over the place, Lynn said, pointing to a growing pile. And we need it to look inviting but not too crowded. Sophie looked at the items: beautifully crafted goods, gift certificates, and art pieces waiting for some love. I think we could use some height variations. Maybe stack the boxes and hang some decorations to tie it all together. Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking. Lynn's eyes sparkled with approval. Let's get started. The next few hours flew by. Sophie found herself lost in the work, the laughter of her peers filling the air mixed with the occasional shout for help. She felt like she belonged, each person complimenting the next, their energy infectious. But in the back of her mind, the look on her mother's face lingered. She hadn't wanted to confront her feelings so openly, but now that she was here, trying to build something together, the thoughts crept back in. What if her mother never truly understood? As her hands worked, they built not just displays but bridges, connections with people and pieces of herself that had felt lost beneath the weight of expectations. Suddenly, Mike's voice broke through her thoughts as he approached, his brow glistening with sweat. "You're a lifesaver, Sophie. The setup looks amazing." "Thanks. It's starting to come together." "Just a few more touches," she said, trying to ignore the flutter of nerves in her stomach at his praise. "Do you think you'll share this experience with your mom?" he asked, catching her off guard. "I want to," but she hesitated. What if she doesn't get it? What if she just sees it as another distraction? "Maybe it's not about convincing her," Mike suggested. "Maybe it's about showing her what it feels like to be here, to be part of something." Sophie considered this, her heart racing at the thought. What if all it took was bringing her mother into this world, into the connections she was making, to help her see? "Yeah, maybe you're right," she admitted slowly. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a beautiful hue enveloped everything, giving the community center a warm glow. The atmosphere felt electric, a spark igniting within Sophie. She had started this day unsure, feeling pulled between paths. But now she was standing at the edge of something new. With renewed courage, Sophie resolved to invite her mother to visit the event tomorrow. It could be the bridge they both needed. Tomorrow, she whispered to herself. Just as she turned to share her thoughts with Lynn, she noticed a stranger lingering nearby. He seemed to be watching with an intensity that made her pause. Was he there for the fundraiser? Or was there something more? Her heart began to race again. Who was he? What did he want? In that moment, tension twisted with hope as Sophie realized that this was only the beginning, and there were still so many questions left unanswered. Sophie's pulse matched the beat of her anxious thoughts as she took a step closer to the stranger. He was tall, with dark hair framing a strong jawline, and there was a certain intensity in his light gray eyes that sent a shiver down her spine. What was he doing here? "Hey, are you alright?" Lynn's voice snapped her out of her thoughts, and she turned to see her friend watching her curiously. I don't know. That guy over there." Sophie pointed discreetly, her heart thumping as she tried to read the stranger's expression. "Maybe he's just drawn in by the auction prep. Everyone's curious about the event." Lynn suggested, though her eyes were narrowed skeptically. Just as Sophie was about to respond, the stranger took a few steps toward them. He had an air of confidence that caught her off guard. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "I couldn't help but notice all the hard work going into this. Do you mind if I ask what it's about?" Lynn answered before Sophie could gather her thoughts. "We're setting up for a community fundraiser and silent auction tomorrow. It's to support local charities." "Sounds like a great cause," the stranger replied, his gaze steady on Sophie. "I'm Daniel. I just moved to the area and wanted to see what the community is doing." Sophie felt a mix of intrigue and wariness. "Oh, welcome to the area," she managed to say, her cheeks warming slightly. She felt an urge to know more but also a push to protect herself from the unknown. "Thanks. It's my first chance to get involved, so I'm just checking it out. Maybe even donate something," he said with a hint of a smile. Her curiosity piqued. "What kind of donation?" "Just something meaningful," he replied thoughtfully, his eyes lighting up. "I'm a single dad. My son loves art, so maybe a piece from him. Just getting my feet wet." Sophie found herself nodding, impressed. "That sounds wonderful. Kids' creative works can bring in quite a bit at auctions." "Exactly. I'm hoping it'll also teach him about community and giving back," Daniel said, a warmth spreading through his expression. There was sincerity in his voice that drew her in, breaking down the barriers she didn't even realize she had put up. Lynn gestured toward the pile of donations. "If you wanted any ideas on what you could contribute, we'd be happy to brainstorm with you." Sophie watched, still trying to absorb everything. An idea sparked in her mind. If you bring your son by tomorrow, he could see his art displayed. That might encourage him. Great idea. I'll definitely do that, Daniel said with a grin, a hint of excitement lighting up his features. Sophie smiled back, feeling a warmth in her chest. Maybe this was what she needed, a connection, a new perspective. Her mom had always struggled with the notion of community, but witnessing it firsthand could change everything. But as suddenly as the moment began, Sophie caught herself lingering on Daniel's promise. Could she really bring her mother into this space, this new world? Would it be truly transformative for both of them? Hey, Sophie, Lynn interrupted her thoughts again. We should probably get back to work. Right. Sophie blinked, shaking off her distractions as she glanced back at Daniel. We'll see you tomorrow, right? Absolutely, he replied, flashing a bright smile that seemed to light up the dusk. As he turned to leave, Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that she had merely skimmed the surface of something significant. Would tomorrow be the day everything changed, or was it just the beginning of more questions? Her heart raced once more, both hopeful and anxious as she turned to Lynn. What if this is the start of something big? Then we'll be ready for it, Lynn replied, her enthusiasm contagious. And with that, Sophie couldn't help but wonder who else would show up tomorrow, and what new connections would she discover. The next morning dawned bright and crisp, a shimmering promise hanging in the air. Sophie felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as she helped set up for the fundraiser. Banners were hung, tables arranged, and silent auction items laid out with care. It seemed like the whole town had taken on a festive spirit, bringing with it a sense of togetherness she hadn't felt in a long time. Lynn was buzzing with energy, adjusting a tablecloth. I can't believe it's finally here, she exclaimed, her face glowing with anticipation. All our hard work is about to pay off. Sophie nodded, half listening as she glanced around, scanning for Daniel and his son. What would they bring to the event? Would it be anything special? Her mind raced with questions, hoping just maybe that this would be a turning point for her. A moment that would initiate a connection not just with Daniel, but also with her own distant feelings about her community and her mother's struggles. As the hours passed, guests began to trickle in. Familiar faces mingled with newcomers, and Sophie felt a warm rush of camaraderie. She found herself smiling, laughing even, but her heart still longed to see Daniel. Finally, amidst the laughter and chatter, she caught sight of him. He approached with his young son, a small bundle of energy with a mop of dark curls. The boy clutched a framed painting, an explosion of colors that made Sophie's breath hitch in surprise. It was an abstract landscape, sunflowers stretching toward a golden sky, vibrant and alive. There they are, Lynn said, waving enthusiastically. Perfect timing. Daniel smiled, taking in the bustling scene. Wow, this is amazing. The way the community came together, it's inspiring. It really is, Sophie agreed, trying to suppress the flutter of nerves in her stomach. She kneeled down to the boy's level. What's your name, artist? Lucas, the boy grinned, his face lighting up with pride. This is my painting. I painted it all by myself. What a wonderful job you did, Lucas. It's so colorful, she exclaimed, her heart swelling at the sight of his proud grin. I think it's going to be a big hit in the auction. Lucas beamed, looking up at his dad. Sophie noticed the warmth in Daniel's eyes as he watched his son. There was an undeniable connection between them, a bond that made Sophie yearn for something similar. Could she be a part of that kind of family? Before Sophie could push her thoughts aside, a local representative stepped up to the microphone. Welcome everyone to our annual fundraiser. Your contributions will make a significant impact on our community. Sophie turned her attention back to the representative, but she couldn't help glancing toward Daniel and Lucas. The way they interacted, it was genuine, heartwarming. It stirred something in her, a longing for deeper connection. A relationship formed from shared experiences and kindness. As the speaker continued, Sophie found herself daydreaming about what it would be like to get to know Daniel better. They could support each other. They could create something beautiful together, maybe even help her mother emerge from her isolation. But just as a thought settled in, her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Can you come home soon? We need to talk. The word sent an icy spike of worry through Sophie. What did her mother want? Was it about the auction? Lost in thought, she missed the call for the first auction item, then the second. The room was buzzing, but her mind was elsewhere, caught in a whirlwind of duty to family versus the enticing new connections forming right in front of her. Sophie felt the pressure building. What if this was the moment that changed everything? What if Daniel was what she needed? And yet, her mother's message gnawed at her, her heart raced as she made her decision, one that could define not only her day but perhaps her future. She took a deep breath, glancing once more at Daniel and Lucas, before stepping away. She needed to figure this out first, but what if she was running away from something important? Hey, I'll be right back, Sophie called out. To Lynn, forcing a smile even as her insides twisted with uncertainty. As she walked toward the exit, she felt a pang of regret but also an undeniable urge. What awaited her on the other side? Would it lead her away from this moment, or would it pull her closer to what she truly wanted? And with that question echoing in her mind, Sophie stepped out, unsure and ready for whatever came next. Sophie stood outside her house, her heart racing as she processed everything that had happened since she left for the fundraiser. The warmth of the community center still tingled on her skin, the laughter of Daniel and Lucas lingering in her mind. But now, as she faced the familiar front door, dread loomed larger than ever. Okay, Sophie, just breathe, she whispered to herself. Inside, the air was heavy, thick with expectation. Her mother stood waiting, arms crossed like a fortress. Anxiety prickled at Sophie's skin as she stepped inside. Why did you leave the event? We need to talk about your choices. Karen's voice cut through the silence, sharp and insistent. I just wanted to check in with you, Sophie replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. I was trying to balance everything. You didn't even tell me you were involved in something like this fundraiser, her mom continued, pacing like a caged animal. What do you think people will say? That you're just some charity case? But Mom, Sophie interrupted, her voice spilling forth with courage, it's not just about the fundraiser. It's about feeling connected, helping people around me, and learning who I really am. Karen stopped, eyes widening in shock. What do you mean? Who you are? You're a student, you're supposed to focus on school. Sophie clenched her fists, her heart pounding. I've been trying to fit into your mold, but I need to explore and find my own path. That doesn't mean I'm throwing everything away. It means I'm discovering myself. Silence settled between them, thick and heavy. Sophie longed to see a flicker of understanding in her mother's eyes but instead found only confusion. Are you saying this community project is more important than your future? Karen finally asked, her voice trembling slightly. No. It's not about one or the other. It's about both. I can do both. Tears threatened to spill as Sophie fought to maintain her composure. Mom, I want to share this with you. I want you to see what I've found, who I've become. You don't have to be afraid of me growing, of us growing. Growing apart? Karen interjected sharply, the vulnerability in her eyes giving way to fear. No, Sophie pleaded, stepping closer. Growing together. I'm inviting you to come to the next event. You'll meet Daniel, see Lucas' artwork. You'll feel it how it connects people. You might even enjoy it. Her mother hesitated, the tension cracking slightly as the weight of Sophie's words sank in. What if it's all just noise? Karen's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Sophie took a deep breath, grounding herself. No, Mom. It's not noise. It's proof that we all care, we're all part of something bigger. Please, just give it a shot. Finally, a flicker of something curiosity. Hope. Crossed her mother's face. Do you really think I would understand? I do, Sophie said fiercely, wiping a tear away. And once you experience it, you can choose whether to support me or not. But I need you to try. We can navigate this together. As the silence lingered, they both began to see each other in a new light. Karen searched her daughter's face, recognizing a strength she hadn't seen before. Okay, maybe. If it means that much to you, I'll come. Joy surged through Sophie's heart. Thank you, Mom. You have no idea what this means. In that moment, connections began to form anew as if the walls separating their worlds were starting to crumble. They would go back to the community center together, and perhaps, through sharing this experience, they could find a common ground, a space to grow instead of pulling apart. The next day arrived with an infectious excitement as Sophie and her mom approached the community center, hand in hand. The buzz of anticipation filled the air as guests began to trickle in. Sophie spotted Daniel immediately, and he waved enthusiastically as Lucas darted toward her, beaming with pride. Look at my painting! He exclaimed, bringing it over to her mother, who couldn't help but smile at the boy's enthusiasm. It was then that Sophie caught sight of emotion in her mom's eyes, a glimmer of understanding shining through the initial apprehension. Sophie turned to Daniel, who approached with his son proudly by his side. Hey, glad you could make it. He welcomed them both. Thanks for inviting us, Sophie, Karen said, her voice softer now. There was a gentleness in her tone, a subtle shift that suggested she might actually want to be there. As the afternoon unfolded, Sophie witnessed her mother discovering the magic of community, how art could inspire growth, how laughter could bridge divides, and how love could flourish when vulnerabilities were shared. Together, they wandered through the auction items, exchanging thoughts and ideas, while the laughter drifted through the air, lifting their spirits higher. By the time the event ended, despite a long day, they were glowing with warmth. Mom, thank you for being here, Sophie whispered, her heart swimming in joy. Karen reached for her daughter's hand, squeezing gently. I'm proud of you, Sophie. I think I finally get it. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of oranges and purples, Sophie marveled at how far they had come. Their paths had crossed, and they were ready to navigate this journey together. They knew they would face new challenges, but now they had hope, courage, and most importantly, each other, and just like that, they weren't just a single dad and a CEO's daughter. They were so much more. If you felt the transformation just as deeply as they did, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these uplifting stories alive. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let us share the love, and don't wait not even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative journey. Your support means everything.